Karen shut down power station with HOA orders. I landed a helicopter 5 minutes later. Have you ever wondered what happens when someone's need for control spirals so far out of hand that it plunges an entire community into chaos? In the quiet suburb of Willow Creek, where manicured lawns and HOA rules reign supreme, one woman's obsession with power, both literal and figurative, set off a chain of events that no one saw coming. It was a sweltering July afternoon, the kind where the air hums with heat and tempers flare. I'm Jake, a lineman for the county's power company, and I just finished a 12-hour shift repairing storm-damaged lines when my radio crackled with an urgent call. Jake, get to Willow Creek substation. It's down. Total blackout. I frowned, wiping sweat from my brow. A substation doesn't just go down without a catastrophic failure or human interference. Little did I know I was about to meet Karen, the HOA president who thought she could bend the world to her will. When I arrived at the substation, a crowd had already gathered, neighbors in flip-flops and tank tops, fanning themselves in the 95-degree heat, their faces a mix of confusion and fury. The power was out across the entire neighborhood, leaving air conditioners silent, refrigerators warming, and medical devices beeping in distress. At the center of it all stood Karen, arms crossed, her blonde bob immaculate despite the chaos. She was clutching a clipboard with Willow Creek HOA emblazoned on it, barking orders like she was commanding a military operation. "This substation is an eyesore," she declared to a bewildered utility worker. "I had every right to shut it down until it's fixed." The truth unraveled quickly, and it was more outrageous than I could have imagined. Karen, in her role as HOA president, had decided the substation's humming transformers and chain-link fence were lowering property values. She'd spent months lobbying the county to beautify it, demanding it be relocated underground or hidden behind a hedge. When her demands were ignored because, substations are critical infrastructure, she took matters into her own hands. Armed with a forged HOA order and a pair of bolt cutters, she'd marched to the substation, cut the lock, and flipped the main breaker, plunging 2,000 homes into darkness. Her reasoning? If the county won't listen, I'll make them. She hadn't counted on the fact that her stunt would knock out power to the entire neighborhood, including her own air-conditioned McMansion. But here's where it gets wilder. Karen hadn't just acted alone. Enter Mrs. Evelyn, the neighborhood's 80-year-old gossip queen, who'd egged her on. Evelyn, with her sharp tongue and penchant for stirring the pot, had convinced Karen that the substation was a health hazard, based on some conspiracy-laden blog she'd read about electromagnetic fields. "You're the president, dear," Evelyn had cooed at the last HOA meeting, her voice dripping with faux concern. "You have the power to protect us." Emboldened by Evelyn's flattery and her own inflated sense of authority, Karen had marched into this disaster without a second thought. The twist? Evelyn wasn't even at the scene. She was sipping iced tea in her powered-off home, blissfully unaware that her meddling had helped trigger a crisis. The confrontation that followed was nothing short of electric. I pushed through the crowd, my work boots crunching on the gravel, and faced Karen. "Ma'am, do you realize you've shut down power for half the town?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Her eyes narrowed, and she thrust her clipboard at me like it was a royal decree. "I'm protecting this community," she snapped. "That substation is a blight, and I have the authority to act." I glanced at the flimsy document with the HOA logo, no legal weight whatsoever. The crowd murmured, their frustration boiling over. A woman in a wheelchair, her oxygen machine now silent, shouted, "My daughter needs power to breathe." A man holding a melting ice cream cone yelled, "Who gave you the right to play God?" Karen's confidence wavered, but she doubled down, insisting the county would thank her for forcing their hand. That's when I radioed for backup, not just any backup, but the kind that makes a statement. "See, our utility company has a contract with a private helicopter service for emergencies like this, when downed lines or inaccessible sites require aerial intervention. I trained with the crew, and I knew they were nearby finishing a drill. "Bring the chopper," I said into the radio. "We've got a situation." 5 minutes later, the air thundered with the unmistakable wop-wop of rotor blades. A sleek black helicopter descended onto a nearby field, kicking up dust and drawing gasps from the crowd. Karen's jaw dropped as I climbed aboard, my crew chief handing me a headset. We weren't just there to fix the substation, we were there to make it clear that her power trip was over. From the air, I could see the full scope of the blackout: streetlights dark, homes lifeless, and traffic signals out, causing gridlock. Karen's community service had turned Willow Creek into a ghost town. As we hovered, my team on the ground worked to secure the substation and restore power. But Karen wasn't done. She stormed toward the helicopter as it landed, screaming about trespassing on HOA property. That's when the sheriff arrived, summoned by a neighbor who'd had enough. The deputy, a no-nonsense guy named Martinez, didn't even blink at Karen's clipboard. "Ma'am, you tampered with critical infrastructure," he said, pulling out handcuffs. "That's a felony." The crowd erupted in cheers as Karen's face drained of color. She stammered, "But I'm the HOA president." Martinez didn't flinch. "Not anymore, you're not." The fallout was swift and brutal. Karen's HOA order was exposed as a fabrication, and the board voted her out that same week. Evelyn, the instigator, tried to play innocent, but the neighborhood turned on her too. Her gossip empire crumbled when residents learned she'd fueled Karen's crusade with baseless conspiracies. The county pressed charges for tampering with public utilities, and Karen faced a hefty fine and community service, ironic, given her claim of protecting the community. Her McMansion went up for sale a month later. The for sale sign a silent admission of defeat. Rumor has it she moved to a condo in the city, where HOAs have less clout. As for Willow Creek, the power came back on within hours, thanks to my crew's quick work. The neighborhood threw a block party to celebrate, complete with a banner that read, "No more Karens." I was hailed as a hero, though I just did my job. The real victory was seeing the community come together, neighbors checking on each other, sharing generators, and vowing to keep the HOA in check. Even Mrs. Evelyn showed up, sheepishly offering homemade lemonade as a peace offering. Maybe she'd learned her lesson, or maybe she just didn't want to be left out. Either way, Willow Creek felt alive again, its pulse restored. Looking back, it's almost funny how one woman's ego could spark such chaos and how a helicopter could bring it to a screeching halt. But it's a reminder that power, whether it's electricity or authority, should never be wielded carelessly. Karen thought she could control everything, but in the end, she lost it all: her position, her reputation, and her place in the community she claimed to serve. It's a story of hubris meeting its match, of a neighborhood finding its voice, and of a lineman who just wanted to get the lights back on. What do you think? Did Karen get what she deserved, or was she just misguided? Share your thoughts, because I'm betting we've all met a Karen or two in our lives.